right. 7 billion voices separate us, but only one can show us who we are. We are made in the image of God. Beautiful shades of love. We are made in the image of God. That's where the light comes from, yeah. We all need the same medicine. We all need another second chance. There's no first in line at the foot of the cross. Father, forgive me. Show my concrete heart. We are made in the image of God. Beautiful shades of love. We are made in the image of God. That's where the light comes from. We fall apart. We all lose sight of heaven, but still your love is chasing us. And I'll give me a heart for every heart that's breaking, and give me eyes to see we're so much more than flesh and blood. We are made in the image of God. Yeah, we are made in the image of God. Beautiful shades of love. We are made in the image of God. That's where the light comes from, yeah. That's where the light comes from, yeah.
You know, I told you guys about the idea of, an extension of the heart of God in each one of us. There is actually in me, just because I don't know it doesn't mean it's not there. That there is actually the heart of God in each one of us, made in the image of God. I mean, what really matters? I mean, we all got a brain, yeah, and that's really cool. But when you say in the image of God, what really matters? To me, it's our core that matters. And that core, to really, okay, I guess I should put this on. Side. There we go. Hello. Is that right? No? Is it upside down? No? No. I'm going to get your sister to beat you up. See, I've been here too long, huh? Yeah. You're probably right, but
You can keep saying.
yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
Always an open door.
Yeah. I was just thinking about our last time. Ooh, it's a little loud. Hello. I was just thinking about our last time here together. I wanted to look at this idea, okay? This one, you guys, please understand, the stuff I'm telling you is just my experience and my conversations with God, my experiences in life and stuff. And so, did something go funny up there? It's right here. Can't you see it up there? Look at those fishies. All right, come on. Screen share. Hello. Thank you. That's almost as bad as let me stand there with my zipper down. All right. You have never been separate from God, except in your mind, which doesn't make it. Is it, you want it flipped over? It's too distracting? All right, it's upside down. What's that song? It's like I whip my hair. How's that song? It is so bad when old people try to be up to date. Oh, yeah. All right, turn it down. That too distracting? That's okay? Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Is it possible? You see, you guys know I've been messing around telling ChatGPT to write a story and different things. And maybe that's where we'll start. So let's go there. Hang on to this idea. And I'm not, this isn't a Bible text, although there's a lot of Bible texts that I think point to this. But it's not just a Bible text, obviously in itself. But let's go ahead and chat GPT and here and come down. It was a while ago that we did that story. Healing through connection, character images, Sean, iPad. It's going backwards. I'm going backwards because this thing should say separation or separateness. Should have been the story. Did you see separateness already? Is that why you were telling me to go up? No, you see, here's simplicity. This is what I've been doing yesterday and stuff. So go on back. Actually, I saved it another place, and so I could probably find it there. Healing through connection. Let's see if that was it. Let's see the prompt. Oh, no. It's older than that. Okay. Nation, voice, MRND, character, political ideology. Sean, best iPad for me. Really? I asked the best iPad for me? Fill identification, transcript story, vine and branches. Yes. Cool. So here's how I started. I said, write a story about an 18-year-old boy. Turn it sideways so you can read it. There we go. Write a story about an 18-year-old boy who's exploring the following ideas, okay? Separateness. Separateness is the cause of every harmful, not font. What do you think? Because it was speech to voice. What do you think it would be? Thought. I bet it's thought. But we're not changing it now because I already did it. Separateness is the cause of because actions start in your head. Thoughts start. Every harmful thought and action. You have never been separate from God except in your mind, which doesn't make it so. Separateness makes it all about me. The separate self takes offense when people don't show it proper respect. The separate self can lie and cheat and steal because it's all about protecting you, promoting you, defending you. So these are my prompts that I'm putting in there. The story of your life spiritually is all about trying to overcome the false sense of separateness. Is it possible to have a radical union with God, with your neighbor, and with yourself? What if we believe that love is the vine and every single person is a branch on the vine? How would we treat ourselves? How would we treat others? And so then I hit enter, and this is the story that came up. Eli had always felt alone, been not in a dramatic way. He had friends, family, people who cared about him, but in a way that ran deep, like, this TV isn't on, so I'll keep looking up there. In a way that ran deep, in a way that, sorry guys, I'm lost. Like a quiet current beneath his daily life. No matter how close he got to others, There was always a distance, a thin but unbreakable layer between himself and the world. It wasn't until his 18th birthday on a quiet retreat in the mountains that he started to question whether the separateness was real or just something he imagined. In that something he imagined into existence. In your head, but it's your reality, but sorry, it's not real. He sat under a massive oak, staring at the vast sky, and let his thoughts drift. He'd brought a book with him, one about love, about unity, about how separateness is the root of all harm. He turned a page and he read, "You have never been separate from God, except in your mind, which doesn't make it so." Kind of interesting, huh? ChatGPT just took that whole sentence and plugged it into the story. Except in your mind, which doesn't make it so. Eli frowned. If that was true, then all his fears, all his struggles, his need to be seen, to be valued, to be right, were built on an illusion. He thought of the times he'd lied to make himself look better, the moments he'd hurt people just to protect his pride, the silent anger he carried when someone didn't respect him the way he thought they should. Was that all just the desperate work of a self that believed it was alone? The thought unsettled him. If separateness was an illusion, then what was real? He closed his eyes and imagined what it would mean to be truly one with God, with others, and even with himself. No walls, no need to defend, no fear of being less than someone else. Just love flowing through him like sap through a vine. What if love is the vine, he thought? I mean, I'm not telling ChatGPT, and this is just writing a story for anybody. I'm not telling him about, Jesus, I'm the vine and you're the... I did tell him, but I just didn't tell him it was a Christian thing, And I love the way they put that. What if it was like sap through a vine? What if love is the vine, he thought, and every single person is a branch? Tell the person next to you you're a branch. Okay, thank you. If that were true, okay, come on back. If that were true, he would never have to prove his worth. He wouldn't need to fight for attention or scramble to be enough. He was already part of something vast, something alive. He thought about how he treated himself, how he spent years criticizing his reflection, hiding his flaws, carrying guilt over things he wished he had done differently. If he was just another branch on the vine of love, how would he treat himself then? More gentleness, maybe? More grace? He wouldn't expect perfection, but he'd expect growth. Man, that's a good line. Wouldn't expect perfection, but he would expect growth. And others, if they were part of the same vine, how could he see them as enemies, as competition, as strangers? How could he dismiss them, judge them, harm them, if they were just as connected to love as he was? Eli opened his eyes. The wind had picked up slightly, making his branches above the tree sway. He reached out and placed a hand on the rough bark of the oak tree, like down at the grove. Suddenly, feeling less like an isolated boy in the mountains and more like a part of everything. For the first time in his life, he felt the wall between himself and the world begin to crack. And actually, I'll still give you the prompt. I was going to go to another place. So now I'm like, okay, so after that, I asked ChatGPT for a bunch of sketches to illustrate, but let's skip through the story because I can show you a couple sketches later. But let's skip through these sketches, blah, blah. Well, I guess I'll show them to you now. That was one of the sketches they gave me. And then they said, do you want some more? And I'm like, no, this is great. I'd like a sketch of Eli's reflection in a stream. And so it says, okay, ChatGPT, okay. Here's the sketch. Yep, thank you. Then I said, please write a second chapter to the vine and the branches and expand on these ideas. Because I took a couple paragraphs from the first story and I put it in the prompt. I want you to expand on these paragraphs, huh? Remember when Eli frowned? If it was true, then all his fears, all his struggles, his need to be seen, to be valued, to be right, built. I thought that's a bunch of good ideas, but I want it in a story. I don't just want a list of good ideas. And so I said, I want you to expand on that paragraph. And this other one, was that all just the desperate work of a self that believed itself alone? The thought unsettled him. So that's what I wanted to, wait a minute. Did I jump into my story? No, I'm still giving the prompts, okay? And what if love is the vine? So I gave those prompts and I just basically said, I want more, okay? So here's part 2. Eli couldn't shake the thought. If separateness was an illusion, then what had he been fighting for all this time? He'd spent years trying to carve out an identity, trying to be somebody. He'd measured his worth by comparison. Smarter than this person, better than that one, more respected, more admired. But if he was already part of something whole, and I would say something huge, if love connected him to everyone else, then all that striving had been pointless. That night, he lay in his sleeping bag under the stars. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a quiet truth. You have never been separate, not from God, not from anyone. Eli turned onto his side, staring at the outline of his hand against the fabric of the sleeping bag. He thought about the times he'd lied to make himself, wait, that was the last chapter, wasn't it? So is it rewriting the story? Anyway, let's keep going. Why had he done it? Because he thought he had to. Because he thought, oh yeah, I gave him the paragraph, so yeah, they put it back in, but they're expanding on it. He thought he had to. Because he thought his worth was fragile, something he had to defend, polish, protect. But if love was the vine and he was already part of it, then his worth wasn't up for debate. He didn't need to exaggerate, to posture, to make sure others saw him in the right way. The thought was both freeing and terrifying. If separateness was an illusion, then so much of his life had been spent chasing shadows. What would it mean to step into the light? Next morning, Eli packed up his small campsite and hiked down the mountain. He felt different, lighter somehow, but also exposed as if an old layer of armor had fallen away. When he reached town, the world looked the same, but he saw it differently. In a small cafe, he stood in line for coffee, and when the barista greeted him without much enthusiasm, the old part of him almost reacted. She doesn't respect you. She doesn't even see you. But another thought followed. Why does it always have to be about you? If she was another branch on the same vine, if they were already connected, then her tone wasn't a personal offense. Maybe she was exhausted. Maybe she was lost in her own worries. Maybe, just like him, she'd spent years believing she was alone. When she handed him his coffee, he looked at her, really looked at her, and said, I hope you have a good day. She blinked as if startled. Oh, thanks. It was such a small moment, but Eli felt something shift, a connection. However brief, he was beginning to see the world differently. And then, it's funny, AI threw this one in on me. It says, separate self fights back. So we're still in the same chapter. But the old ways didn't die easily. Later that afternoon, he met up with his friend Lucas. They'd been close for years, but there had always been an undercurrent of competition between them. Who was funnier, who was more successful, who had it, more together. As they talked, Lucas mentioned a recent accomplishment, something he was pretty proud of, and the old instinct flared in Eli's chest. Say something impressive, make sure he knows you're just as important. For a moment, he almost gave in, almost let the separate self jump in, puff itself up, take control. But then he caught himself. You don't need to prove anything. Instead of redirecting the conversation back to himself, he simply said, that's really great, man. You must feel proud. Lucas paused like he was waiting for the usual back and forth, the game they always played. When Eli didn't take the bait, something softened in his expression. Yeah, I do. The conversation flowed easier after that. No defenses, no silent battles, just two people, two branches on the same vine. Whether it's the barista, whether it's friend Lucas, two branches on the same vine. Radical union. That night, as Eli walked home, he thought about how much energy he'd spent in his life fighting for a place in the world, defending himself, making sure he was noticed, respected, admired. It had all been built on a lie, the lie of separateness. If love was the vine and everyone was a branch, then life wasn't about proving anything. It was about abiding, trusting. Man, guys, this is starting to sound to me like the Bible. I'm thinking to myself, I give the principles of the Bible to ChatGPT, and it gives me back in non-religious language truth. I mean, I don't know that ChatGPT, has a history of being abused or of God's name being a negative thing in their life, or somehow of, being battered by things. And that's what's so challenging to me, because it's not like I'm thinking ChatGPT for the Bible, but it's taking another perspective that I haven't seen, and I'm looking at that perspective, and I'm like, yeah, to abide. I mean, shoot, that's an old hymn, huh? Abide with me, fast fall the eventide. Abiding. It was about abiding, trusting, flowing with the life that was already within him. Yeah. Love Corps. He wondered what the world would look like if everyone believed that. How would people treat themselves if they knew they were already connected to love? Maybe they would stop beating themselves up over every mistake, stop feeling like they had to earn their worth, stop carrying the weight of proving they belonged. And can you imagine? Some of you, this is your first year here, and you weren't sure what you were going to find. Some of you came back from another year because of what you found. And can you imagine a community? You already have big parts of this, what's here. You don't have to, but we're still human, huh? So there are times we're still trying to prove ourselves, or we're trying to, defend something, or we feel like somebody did, disrespect us and stuff. But this thing is saying, what if everybody believed that you already were connected to love? How would they treat each other? Maybe there'd be less judgment, less competition, less need to tear others down just to feel secure. Maybe people would see each other the way they truly were, not as threats, not as rivals, but as family. Eli didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing. He didn't want to live the old way anymore. He didn't want to spend his life protecting an illusion. For the first time, he didn't feel like he had to be somebody. He just had to be. Now, look, guys, I know I've been talking super positive about you, and I appreciate it. And I know I'm kind of like honeymoon. I'm a new guy here, and you're treating me really nice and welcoming, and all of that is very cool. But the roots are still there. The roots are there. The potential is there to be that, to be part of that community. I've got a story I want to tell you. This is not a genocide story, okay? I've told you a lot of those already. And then after I share that story, and by the way, if you want this one, did I send this to you already, Derek? Okay. So I'll send this one to you, and then you can share it with however you guys would like to, that story. And the other one about simplicity, perplexity, complexity. We'll share that story with you too. I did go on. I did go through, and just the next, I said, edit this second chapter by replacing the word God with the word love, because I wanted to use it in secular settings. And so I won't go through because it didn't make a big difference. But you know what? Well, yes, it did make it didn't, in words, it didn't make a big difference. But you know what I realized? Because for several years, I've been doing this substitute God for love, right? I mean, love for God, right? Because I'm talking to people who, many of them, God is a trigger, and I'll lose them. And so I say, let's just talk about love. But I realized as I asked this thing to substitute the word love again for God, and I read it, there was this little bit of emptiness inside of me. And I'm like, I tell people God is my framework for love, but God is so much more than a framework. You know, God is my best friend. God never leaves me. I would love it, guys, if you felt, I mean, I don't know. Okay, I try to be descriptive. I think I told you that at the very beginning. I do not try to tell anybody prescriptive. I don't say you should do this or should do that or anything. So I was just about to go prescriptive, so I caught myself. So here's, though, the descriptive thing I want to say. You guys remember that first time that I encountered Gregoire, I was so messed up, felt like vomiting. That night, I felt like I couldn't sleep. And I started reciting these 5 things to Teresa to recenter myself. Maybe that might be something. I'm slipping away from descriptive, but I'm trying to stay away from prescriptive. But maybe you might like to figure out 3 or 4 or 5 things for yourself that really center you when you feel knocked flat. What those might be. I also have these 3 values. We didn't talk about it. I popped this picture up a bunch of times, but I think I just talked about it with the faculty meeting the other evening. You know, the Gasequa thing. Did you guys ever wonder about the respect, empathy, inclusion? Those are 3 core values of the little nonprofit my wife and I started. So this little nonprofit that we started, we just, is it 2 years ago? We went through and we redid the website, and World Outside My Shoes is the name of the organization. And this is our website. And we said, this looks like, it could be a real organization. Well, it's just me and my wife and 1 part-time guy. So it's not like but it's real, but it's just tiny. But this is what we are, why. We believe the possibility, will it be bigger if I turn it sideways? Yeah. We believe the possibility for healing, restoration, and connection exist even when it seems unattainable. Maria and Filbert. And I could give you several other stories but I won't this time. Our mission is to equip and inspire people of all ages to build trusting relationships through repair thinking, restorative thinking, not blame and punishment, through repair thinking and practices. And then our work, and there's funny guy, and there's a little summary of our story, and you click on that little link, and then we go down to schools and universities and faith groups and all this stuff. Why did I just go there? Oh yeah, values, respect, empathy, and inclusion. So those are the values of our little nonprofit. Come back here. Respect. This is worth a minute. I hope it's worth it to you. To me, I think it can be. Respect, the assumption of value. When I walk in the room with respect, when I come on your campus with respect, when a police officer pulls me over for driving too fast and I roll down my window and I approach him with respect, it's an assumption of value. This campus is a place of value. I meet you, you're a person of value. You get that? Inspect is like the cousin of respect. Inspect is an assumption of fault, of problem, which we need when you have an earthquake or something. You need to find the faults or the problems. But this respect, an assumption of value. And that leads to learning someone's story, which helps us then connect the dots between our story and their story. Where's my thing? Empathy. That leads to learning someone else's story, which helps us then connect the dots between our story and their story. So you see the journey? Assumption of value, learn their story, Connect the dots. Oh, yeah. And we start connecting with each other. Connect the dots of our stories. Then, why don't you come over? You know, we're having a bonfire down by the river this evening. Let's try and see what I can do here. Inclusion is the natural next step after empathy. I need to make a new slide. Oh, no, don't keep talking. Next step after empathy. Yeah, empathy next. So you follow this idea, assumption of value, learn the story, connect the dots, come on over, come on in. Inclusion is not forcing somebody to do something. It's like, oh, I gotta include this person. No. We have already, and that's why I put it on this drawing, because for years, Gasikwa had been approaching his neighbors with the assumption of value. And so it was no surprise that when the genocide started, his local mayor of the little neighborhood, the guy had a Hutu ID card, but his wife had a Tutsi ID card. So his wife was at risk of being killed, and his kids were at risk of being killed because their mom was a Tutsi. So they bring him where? To this man's house, because they know he's connected. The empathy is there, the inclusion is right there. I hope you see that, because to me, it's incredible. Gasikwa's way he lived his life. So what if, I don't know, what if you tried that idea? An assumption of value. Connect the dots. All right, so let's get to my story. Unless somebody has a question. I know, Sabbath afternoon, and most of us are staying awake, and I don't feel bad for anybody who's not, because I know you're awake. You just have your eyes closed. Yeah. A comment? Yeah.
When you were talking about different stories, meeting together, it kind of reminded me of this morning down by the river.
Mm-hmm.
Those stories connecting, sharing common.
Yeah. When we start exchanging stories, and juniors, when we were down at the bridge, remember, I'm talking about engage all 5 senses, if much as possible. You know, we didn't do much with the smell sense on the bridge, but we did stuff with some of the other senses. And that whole idea, definitely connection. So maybe this is my last story, maybe. I want you to see, okay, come on, buddy. Where are you? Oh, yeah, I had this up and we didn't talk. I was telling you this morning about the Chicago kids that I took to Rwanda and how they met Maria and Filbert. Well, they met a bunch of other people, too, at this community center. And they were asking these ladies questions who had survived the genocide. It'd be a pretty cool opportunity, huh? To be able to ask people who went through something like that anything you want. So one of the young men from Chicago, I gotta show you these Chicago kids. They were such an amazing group as we spent time together, and I would love it if I had their picture real handy. Is this them? No. That's one. This is a wooden bike that a guy in Rwanda, he has a factory, he's amazing. So that's one of our Chicago kids, but come on, where's the other ones? Okay, there's 2 more of the Chicago kids. Sorry, I should have had anyway, obviously I didn't plan ahead to show you a picture, but anyway, so these kids are all there and they're meeting these people and they're asking questions. So one of the Chicago kids says to the ladies there, what about God and the genocide? Like they ask me all the time. And here's what the lady said. She said, at the beginning we thought God forgot us, but then it got worse. And we thought God didn't like us, and then it got worse. And we decided we didn't like God, period. And to the kid's credit, he said, but then what? And she says, then we got really lonely and we decided to try God again. And that's when they came up with this statement. They said, it is our pain that drives us deeper into love. And I was thinking, wait a minute. that doesn't quickly fit in with anything of my thinking. Pain often kind of drives me away, drives me to anger, doesn't drive me to love. But then I thought, what if the pain was so great that I was just drowning under it? Trying to get up to the surface and get a gulp of air, and I'm drowning under this pain. And finally, somebody throws me a life ring, a raft, love. And I grab that raft, and I hang on to that, because that is the only thing that keeps me from drowning. So the story I wanted to end with is an incredible person who is one of the most amazing representations of love, people that you meet in your life that I've ever known. And his name is Amiel Gahima. It's this man right here in the kind of middle of everything. When I got to ADRA, Amiel was the administrative assistant. I was the director of the program there. He's the administrative assistant. At that point, Amiel probably spoke 5 different languages, spoke really good English, and so that was super helpful for me because I was still learning French. And as we started doing projects, this man was just this calm, gentle presence who really he had worked for ADRA maybe 10 years or something by then. Just a lot of good experience. He was just a rock-solid, great friend. When the war started, this is before the genocide, 3 years before, when the war started, people were fleeing from their homes, and we started taking clothing. You know, some people here in America, this is, 34 years ago, 35 years ago, they would send clothes from Dorcas or other places over there in big bales, and we would break those bands, and they would pop open, and we'd take these clothes, and we gave them out to people who had run from their home. The only thing they had was the clothes on their back. And I remember Amiel coming back from a clothing distribution, and I said, "How'd it go, Amiel?" And he said, pretty good. I'm like, "What's wrong?" Before this war started, if I saw somebody with blood on their clothing, I thought, they've just slaughtered a goat or a chicken, Must be somebody's wedding or a party, some celebration. But today, when I saw blood on people's shirts, I thought it could be another human's blood. He was just super sensitive and thoughtful. Another day, when he was out with Gasikwa, so the guy who gave people chickens, so this is Gasikwa. We're all a lot older now, years later, but they were out, and a Danish girl, volunteer, Pia, was with them, and they were distributing clothes again. And after they finished distributing clothes, they were going to use the ADRA truck to help the Red Cross distribute food the next day to the people, because the Red Cross had food that came in big semis, but then it needed to be distributed out to people, and they didn't have enough trucks. So we were going to stay by and help the Red Cross distribute food the next day. So as they were driving back to the town where they were going to spend the night, Amiel and Pia were standing in the back of this open bed truck, and Gasikwa was driving. All of a sudden, Amiel starts banging on the roof of the cab. Stop. And Gasikwa hits the brakes. Amiel jumps out of the truck and starts running in a field. From his position in the truck, he had looked over, and he saw a group of people, and he's looking at that group, and he knows right away. He's an agriculture genius. He would love it here in Wisconsin. And he had, around his house, there were all different kinds of plants. It was like a botany garden. What do you call those? Botanical garden. He just had all kinds of stuff. So Amiel, he's a very thoughtful, very observant guy, and he recognized what was happening was a little kid was being swarmed by killer bees, and a crowd of people had gathered around, but nobody seemed to know what to do. Stop the truck. He bangs on the roof. Gasikwa brakes. Amiel jumps out of the truck, sprints into the field, pushes through the crowd, scoops up the little kid, bees and all, and comes running back to the truck. His idea is, we're going to get him in the back of the truck and drive off, and the wind will get us away from the bees. And so he hands the little kid with bees on him to Pia, who's in the truck. Pia takes the little kid. Go, go, she shouts to Gasikwa. And Amiel's on the back bumper about to get in, but as Gasikwa hit the gas, he lost his grip, fell off, and actually got knocked unconscious for maybe 20 seconds. And when he came to, his head was swarmed with bees. And he's getting up, trying to fight these bees. And there's some guys he said he saw over there. Help, he's calling. Nobody will come near him. And as he's fighting the bees, finally Pia, because she had grabbed a piece of clothing that was still in the truck, and she's trying to swat the bees all away from the little boy as they're driving and they're bouncing. And then she notices no Amiel. What? Because there were big empty boxes in the truck, big empty crates in the truck. So she had just thought Amiel was behind a crate or something. Bangs on her, stop, Gasikwa. And so Gasikwa turns around, they drive back, and here's Amiel kind of coming down the road, but the bees are following him. And so they pick him up in the back, and they hit the gas to get out of there. Problem is, as he's turning around the truck, going there, and then you don't have a road, you just kind of turn, urge, and he backs into a ditch. And the back wheel is just spinning. And the bees, of course, are stinging. And Amiel or Gasikwa, if you ask them, how did you get out of the ditch? They just say one answer, angels. We don't know. We were stuck. And then we weren't. They got to the hospital. With bee stings, you need epinephrine in case they have an allergic reaction, anaphylactic shock, okay? And so when they got to the hospital, the little boy was still conscious, but Amiel was completely unconscious. Now, as soft and gentle as Amiel is, Gasikwa can be kind of the yin and the yang. He can be pretty tough and hard shell, and but he has a great heart, hard shell. I mean, people came to him to be rescued years later in the genocide, but he can be kind of a get-it-done business guy. And here he is leaning over Amiel in the back of the truck, crying. I wasn't even there. The Danish girl told me these stories. Amiel, don't die. Amiel, don't die. And they get him in the hospital. Unfortunately, this little hospital in the corner of Rwanda had epinephrine. And there he is. You can see he's alive today. They called me on the little shortwave radios that we communicated with, and told me what had happened. And I said, well, listen. They said the hospital wants us to stay here for a night observation. But I said, okay, then you guys come back in the morning. We want to help the Red Cross, but we got to get Amiel back here. And she called me a little later, and she said, Amiel won't let us. He says, we got to help them distribute the food. And when he did, and so they did, the whole next day, Amiel was sitting in the cab. He wasn't standing in the back because he obviously wasn't feeling well enough. He's sitting in the cab on these bumpy dirt roads, hanging on as they're going around distributing food. He gets back to the office that night. It's after dark. I'm waiting at the office for him. He gets out, and I go up, and I hug him, and I'm like, Amiel, you look terrible. His eyes, you could hardly, little slits, huh? His whole face is so swollen. I mean, not quite double the size, but he's really, really swollen. And he kind of grins through these swollen lips. And he says, I was thinking I was going to have a honey project at my place, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Well, the genocide comes, and Amiel doesn't live in the capital city. Even though he worked in the capital city, he would ride his bike about 25 kilometers every morning over the Rwanda's hills, up and down. I mean, his thighs were like a real cyclist thighs. The guy was fit. He would ride his bike to work and ride back out to the country every night. The genocide comes, and Amiel's ID card said Hutu, so he wasn't marked to be killed. But his wife's, Alice's, ID card said Tutsi, which meant she was marked to be killed. And of course, their two little children, Margaret and, I cannot believe Margaret and little brother, they're at risk too. So Amiel goes to the neighbors, people he's been loving on and serving, being kind to, and he's now asking them for help. Everybody always came to him before for help. Now he's asking them, will you hide my wife and children? And neighbors were willing to for a while, 2 days, maybe 3 days. Then they're like, Amiel, I think people know they're here. It's not safe. You got to get them out. Try to find another hiding place. And he would go looking for food during the day to bring back food for everybody at the house where they're hiding his wife and children. Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. There were just no more neighbors. So he basically took her home and his little kids home to die. What else are they going to do? There's no place to run. There's no place to hide. The killers came, and a couple of guys he had never seen before, Muslims, they came up on the killers at Amiel's house. They just came from I don't know where. And the killing squad was arguing with Amiel. We're not going to hurt your wife. We just want to take her for questioning. We just want to take her for questioning. We're not going to hurt. She was really pregnant. These Muslim guys. You know, I was talking to you guys about reliving and remembering. I'm reliving right now. And I need to take a breath to remember. These Muslim guys argued with the killing squad, and they somehow convinced the killing squad to go. Amiel couldn't remember seeing them before, couldn't remember seeing them afterwards. But they came back later, the killing squad. And Amiel was so torn because they're like, we're just going to take her for questions. We're just going to take her for questions. Just relax. And he's like, if I take my kids and try to fight them, so he's torn. What do I do? He knows nothing else he can do except allow these men to take his wife. I don't know how he got word of her death. Didn't know where she was buried. And he fled with his kids. He had a Hutu ID card, so he could usually get through roadblocks, although his lighter complexion kind of looked more like the Tutsis, and so they would give him trouble. He says at some roadblocks, they would, I just realized I told you I wasn't going to tell you a genocide story. The B story was not genocide. But it's interesting how these different stories lead up to the other stories in our life, one thing to another. At some roadblocks, they told him, you sit over there. I don't care what your ID card says. We're going to kill you. And his kids, I don't even know what he did. Adam, that's the son's name. Margaret and Adam were about 4 and 6 years old. So they wouldn't make them. I don't know if Amiel would tell them just to wait by a tree or something while he would try to get through the roadblock. I don't know the details, but he was fleeing towards the border of the Congo, Goma, where many people were fleeing by this time. But fortunately, he didn't make it there. And I say fortunately because cholera swept in and killed people by the tens of thousands. They were using front-end loaders to dig graves for people who were dying of cholera. So there's a genocide, people being killed, people who fleeing the genocide are now here dying from cholera. He goes south along the lake, and then the RPF soldiers drive the extremists out of the country, out of power, and there's peace again in Rwanda. So he's coming home by foot. It'll take him several days walking. And I get word, I can now, the killing is stopped in the city, the killing stopped in the country. I'm going to try to find whatever friends of mine who have survived. And I'm trying to find Amiel. His younger brother worked in the city, and I found him. And I said, do you know, is Amiel still alive? Can we find him? He says, I hear that they have this grapevine around Rwanda. I don't know how it all worked, even without a radio, but I hear he's walking back to town with all the tens of thousands of other people who are walking. So we drive out of Kigali. I had this double cab Nissan pickup truck that had been stolen from the UN. And if you guys want to read this, I'm going to try to get I'll get a PDF here to the school, and you could read this. Is Amiel's story in there? I don't think so. But the story of how I got the UN truck is in there. Anyway, I'm driving this truck with his brother, and as we're leaving town, there's just streams of people along the road. We're driving slowly to see if we see his face. There, one or two people next to each other, but it's solid stream of people. Little kid is just walking, holding on to mom's hand with every step. I mean, these people are just like barely putting one foot in front of the other. We come to a place where there's switchbacks because of the hills, and the people would walk straight at the switchback because they were trying to make it as short as possible. So I had to drive. His brother would get out and walk up the switchback to make sure we didn't miss Amiel. We would stop at a group of people. His brother would ask, anybody know Gahima Amiel from Commune Runda? Always somebody knew him. Yeah, you keep going. I'm sure he's back there. We went 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 kilometers. And at the next, about 60 kilometers was the next town. What's 60 kilometers? 40 miles about? Is the next town. And we're like, oh, shoot. Once we get to town, there's all kinds of roads in town. How will we find him? Here, there's just been one road so we can watch. But he was right at the edge of town. First, I saw his brother, older brother, who had a bicycle. And then he said, yeah, Amiel's right back there. So I drive back, and here's Amiel walking among. This was a man who had been giving aid. He's a man who, like I said, he spoke like 5 different languages. When we were in the Congo during the war in Rwanda, before the genocide, we were scoping out an area, trying to figure out how we could help the people and stuff. And that night we were sharing a room in a little guest house. And as we were kind of going to sleep under our mosquito net, I said, Amiel, I heard you speak in a different language today to some of those people. What was that language? And he says, that was Lungala. And I'm like, what's Lungala? Well, it's the language of this area here. Well, how did you learn it? I listened to their radio station. I'm like, what? You learn a language listening to a radio station? He's in America now. He works at a mental hospital as an orderly in Michigan. First language he started learning when he got to America, he already knew English, Spanish. Next language he started learning, Latin. The guy is just so smart. Next language he started learning that he's learning right now, Chinese. Yeah, this man, humble, brilliant. Anyway, I see him there. I get out of my truck. I run over. I wrap my arms around him and little Margaret. Like I said, Adam is on his shoulders. Man, he's skin and bones. He's like I'm hugging a skeleton with skin over him. And then I step back and look at him, and I can see his kids have little bites all over their arms and stuff. And I don't know if he had a long sleeve shirt, but I noticed on the kids and on their legs, and I'm like, what happened? Oh, this man gave us a place to sleep one night, but there were a lot of bed bugs, but we're just so happy to be alive. And so I said, well, get in the truck. I'll take you home. And no, he says, all of these people, they're my community. I can't leave them. And I'm like, well, we got a truck. Tell them to get in the truck. And so he tells everybody to get in the truck. And so we have Amiel and his 2 children and his brother and me in the front seat. And then in the back seat are a whole bunch of other people. And then in the bed of the truck, there's a whole bunch more people till really we have like so many people. They're all standing up in the back of the truck. And I don't know, this little truck was probably going to break, but it's just leaning way down under the load. And I'm like, okay, everybody ready? No, wait. This older lady calls behind, and I go back there, and she has a yellow 5-gallon water jug she doesn't want to let go of. I mean, it's empty, but she doesn't want to lose it. And she needs to hold on to the people with both hands so she doesn't follow the truck. So I said, okay, she gives me the yellow thing. So I hold it outside the window while I'm driving with one hand, because there's no place for the jug inside. And so we're driving off. And then Amiel's like, whoa, wait, stop. That little boy is from my community, and he's sick. And I'm like, Amiel, where are we going to put him? And he looks around, and he says, in the window. And so this little boy is sitting in the window with his legs, somebody's holding his legs, and he's sitting on the window holding on to the rain gutter. By the time we got to Amiel's house, there were about 5 people in the windows around there. I don't know how we ever got there, and the truck tires didn't blow or anything. Amiel's house had been stripped of doors, of anything that was in it. The house was just totally stripped. And I said, Amiel, why don't you come home with me tonight and sleep? No, this is my family. This is our home. We're okay. So I said, okay, tomorrow I'll come check on you. The next day I was going looking for another ADRA worker and his family. We had these amazing reunions, guys, after the genocide. They were just like, this one guy, Thomas's wife, I thought she was gonna crack every rib in me as she hugged me, and I came with her husband, and the kids are there and stuff. I stopped by Amiel's house on the way home that evening, and Amiel was doing, a bit better. He wanted to give me a chair or something to sit on, but there was nothing. They had stolen everything. So we sat on the grass, which I said, that's fine. But Rwandans are big on hospitality, and he didn't want me sitting on the grass. But I said, I'm fine. And as we sat on the grass, I'm thinking, how can I encourage this man? What can I say? And he starts telling me about fleeing with the children. Tells me about the burned homes and the bodies. Says, I wanted to go and just keep going and never come back. But at night, I would look up at the stars, and I would think of Joseph when he was sold into slavery, looking at the same stars and the same God who created those stars. And then Amiel starts quoting to me Revelation 21. Come on, where are you, Bible? My Bible, where's my Bible? There, I know, so here it is. I saw heaven and earth, new created, gone the first heaven, gone the first earth, gone the sea. I saw holy Jerusalem, new created, descending, resplendent out of heaven, as ready for God as a bride for her husband. I heard a voice thunder from the cloud. This man is quoting this, he's memorized this. I heard a voice thunder from the throne. Look, God's moved into the neighborhood, making his home with men and women. They're his people. He's their God. He'll wipe every tear from their eyes. Death is gone for good. Tears gone, crying gone, pain gone, all the first order of things gone. The enthroned continued, look, I'm making everything new. Write it all down. Each word dependable and accurate. And then he said, it's happened. I'm A to Z. I'm the beginning and the end, the conclusion. From the water of life well, I give freely to the thirsty. Conquerors inherit all of this. I'll be God to them. They'll be sons and daughters to me. We're at time here. I often wondered when Jesus told the woman at the well about this well that could spring up inside of her and could never be thirsty again, and it would never end. And I always kind of imagined, okay, that's the love of God. It's a beautiful picture, but it never became so real to me as it did as it has been during these last 15 months when I've been thinking about this idea of the heart of God in each one of us. I'm like, if there was ever a well that will never run dry, it's the heart of God in each one of us. Let's pray. Father, where do I begin? Well, I begin thanking you for Amiel. I thank you for his friendship. Now he's ministering to people in a mental hospital in his kind, compassionate, caring way. Shoot, sometimes he works 60, 70 hours a week because he's still sending money to family back in Rwanda. I thank you for his friendship. I thank you for his example. I thank you for, sometimes we think we're going to encourage somebody else and we find ourselves, like I did that night, being lifted up by another man with a beautiful love core, a love core that knows as you are the creators of the stars, you're the creators of us. We are made in your image. Yeah, I think that might be, I don't want this to be a long prayer, but maybe that'll be the last thing I want to say together with these guys. We are so grateful to be made in your image. And we want to live out of that image. And when we screw up, which we surely will, we want to know we don't need to be ashamed, but that screw up is something to study and learn for and to come closer to you. Imagine. I mean, it's not like, you want to screw up, but we want to learn and we want to come closer to you. And so we know that's not the only way by screwing up, but we can also come closer to you down there in the Grove or in this special place on campus where we realize we're standing with you, on you. You are our rock. You are our foundation. I really do thank you for this community, Lord, and both the students, the faculty, the staff, the neighbors around here. There are wonderful things that you have planned every single day for us, and we're totally oblivious. I just really pray that as your will unfolds here, that the family here will grow. It'll grow in a way that honors you, and in a way that really is a light here on a hill. Thank you, and I love you. In Jesus' name, amen.